welcome to our inaugural episode of the From Sarajevo to Red Africa book club. One of the biggest and most unfair characterizations that history suffers from is that it is boring. In fact, recent surveys done in schools give exactly that information. Not only do students find history boring, but only 28% of the public is actually interested in learning more about history. Google Trends shows a huge downshift in searches on history-related subjects over the last 20 years. And history as a major in colleges has basically imploded. Yet, somehow, this exists during a time when history has never been more popular in pop culture. Audiences voyeuristically consume episodes of The Crown on Netflix, alternate history in the form of Bridgerton, and Warren spies are, as always, a big entertainment business. So, maybe the problem is not history that is boring, but the stuffy way in which it is presented. Any honest assessment of history would come to the conclusion that, as Oscar Wilde said, history is merely gossip. Who did what to whom, when, while wearing what, runs the entire paparazzi industry. People want to know the details. And a huge importance during this gossip is who slept with whom. Empires were built and fell on the strength of their marital alliances and childbirth success, or lack thereof. What better way to tie absolutely everything together than to read a book and visit the places within it? It's all well and good to be impressed by the monument of Maria Theresa in the museum's quartier, but isn't it better to know what you're really seeing? Reframing history as gossip, important gossip, but full of scandalous information nonetheless, is why we've chosen as our inaugural book club read-along, Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll in Habsburg Vienna by Maria Mustapic. Also, Maria is our go-to historian for our various documentaries, and we kind of like spending time with her. In any case, this week, we're kicking it all off by looking at pages 1 to 26 of her book, which lay the foundation of her chapter on sex in Vienna. It's going to be a shocking historical ride, and anything but boring. The first part of Maria's book gives a background on how sexual matters were dealt with in different parts of the historic world. And she gets right into it. On page 17, she addresses the regulation of celibacy amongst priests. The secular reason for celibacy as an ecclesiastical law was most likely a financial one. Without a wife and children, the servants of God passed their worldly possessions onto the mother church upon death. It's an interesting way to look at the situation. And even if one argues it's not the actual reason for enforcing celibacy, it certainly was a nice institutional side effect. I'm a little afraid to talk this too in depth, though. It might give some current large employers ideas. But moving on, Maria then delivers facts about the first organized attempt of law through the Holy Roman Empire, the Constitutio Criminalis Carolina in 1532. The Carolina, as it was known after Emperor Charles V, the Habsburgs were very creative in their naming techniques, as can be seen in a glance at their family tree, and also owner of an impressive specimen of the legendary Habsburg jaw. He meant to reform and bring into conformity laws in general, in particular, murder, robbery, arson, witchcraft, and homosexuality. It might surprise you how often those crimes all seem to intersect, and never to the benefit of the female sex. In any case, there was now a legal and empire-wide definition of rape. To wit, for anything to be declared rape, there had to be a physical proof of resistance to the point that the woman was rendered unconscious or injured. And of course, don't be silly, a husband could not rape his wife. It's just ridiculous. But moving on, the Carolina was nowhere near the last attempt to regulate what went on in people's Holy Roman bedrooms. In 1768, Empress Maria Theresa, the one with the big statue, came out on her own with a more draconian version. Given the reputation of the Empress's lusty husband, her interest in the sex lives of others seems as though she suffered from a bit of mental misdirection.
Oh my God.
In any case, Maria Theresa banned nearly all non-procreative sex. At least in this, she wasn't a hypocrite. She gave birth to 16 children in 19 years herself with her husband, Francis Stephen, who also managed to procreate another 30 or so children on the side. On the other hand, the Teresiana also banned incest. Rather hypocritical on the part of the Habsburgs, given their obsession with keeping the Habsburg DNA fully within the family. She did ban witch trials, though. But time was marching on, and the role of sex in society was changing. Rules lightened considerably under Maria Theresa's son, Joseph II, who had his own public sexual peccadillos. Then, around the early 1800s, came the opening salvo of the middle class, who were aspiring to a lifestyle more like that led by the nobles. This meant servants, often female and easily harassed, and more rigid rules for the girls in parvenu families.
Hey.
Oh no!
As always, in practice, this led to a more robust policy of feminine behavior police in certain classes, while the boys in the house would take after the maids. Gilded cages abounded and were in glorious abundance. On the surface, of course. Humans can figure out how to get around rules with even more creativity than they can use to come up with the rules themselves. Luckily, we had Maria to play history detective, and that's precisely what we'll talk about next week when we go over pages 27 to 45 of Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll in Habsburg Vienna. And more info for those reading home along with us. If the stories of sex in Habsburg Vienna have piqued your interest, Maria not only wrote the book, but she leads the tours. And you can join her in investigating all the lurid and wonderful sights she describes in Viennese history. It all had far more influence on current events than you might think.
Oh, I love it!